Hi everyone. The 2024 Grammys just aired this past Sunday, and there were two performances that really and struck me in the heart. Yes, I am going to bring this back to boxing for you, but first I'd like to break down those performances. They were Tracy Chapman performing Fast Car, her song, with Luke Combs, and Joni Mitchell performing Both Sides Now, also her song, with Joni and Friends. So, this is absolutely not a reaction video because I cannot react to either of these songs because I already know I really love both songs, and I'm really taken by both performers. So I'm not going to deliver a phony reaction video to something I already know I like. But that being said, let's break down why I found both performances so moving. So Joni Mitchell's performance of Both Sides Now. Okay, Joni Mitchell was that older woman you saw in the black outfit with the gold embroidery with the hat on. She had to walk on stage with a cane, and she performed seated. So who is Joni Mitchell? Well, she's 80 years old. Yes, she is an older woman. And she wrote that song and recorded it, Both Sides Now, when she was in her 20s. I believe she was in her mid-20s. And that song was released in the late 60s. So let's look at this in the bigger picture now. Okay, so we're talking 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughts, 10s, 20s. So this is quite the time span for this song to still stand up. Joni won a Grammy for the live performance of Both Sides Now at the Newport Folk Festival a couple of years ago. But that's not really the point. The fact that she won a Grammy is actually sort of not the most important fact here. She already has like 8 or 9 Grammys, and she's won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Grammys. She's also been honored by the Kennedy Center. So it's not so much the award. I really feel it's the fact that she performed this same song 6 decades after she originally performed it. So let's take a look at those 3 performances, and I will put links in the description if you'd like to watch these on your own, and I encourage you to do so. So when Joni performed Both Sides Now in her 20s, she performed just her voice with accompanied by her playing her acoustic guitar. And at that point, I think she was viewed or she was categorized pretty much as a folk singer. And when she performed Both Sides Now in her 20s, she did it in a fairly straightforward manner, meaning she kind of kept with the beat, kept a certain tempo, maintained that for the whole song, and the song worked perfectly fine. In that song, that was one of her more popular songs, and it probably still is up until present time. But let's jump forward another, say, I think maybe 3 or 4 decades, and in the year 2000, Joni Mitchell re-records Both Sides Now, and of course performs it live as well. But I guess with the sort of maturity that she brought to her own song, she changed it up completely. By that I mean she sang in front of an orchestra, and somebody arranged for the strings and the entire orchestra. So it's a completely different backdrop for her vocals. Also, I think at this point her range had shifted. So when she was in her 20s and maybe 30s, she was more of a soprano, and then as time went on, her voice shifted to be more of an alto, but a lower register. And then the third aspect is she chose to not do it not perform both sides now in a straightforward manner. She didn't stick on the beat. She kind of played with the tempo and the timing and the rhythm of the song, and delivered it with, a completely different feel. Okay, so that was over 20 years ago that she kind of revolutionized her own song for herself. And then again, fast forward to just a few years ago where she performed this live at the Newport Folk Festival. Well, this is post stroke, right? Joni Mitchell had an aneurysm about 7 years ago and had to kind of relearn everything. I, I I mean, I would imagine she might have even had to relearn some of her own music. I'm not sure. Maybe that's the one thing that sticks with you in spite of having, a stroke or an aneurysm. But regardless, she reinvented herself yet again and performed this song, to the joy of, I'm sure, everybody who was there for the live performance. And she certainly had that support of all her all her friends on stage, friends and colleagues, also, acclaimed musicians, felt, I think honored to be included in that group of people who performed live with Joni Mitchell. So the point there I'd like to make is that this song and Joni Mitchell herself have this incredibly unbelievable longevity. That's sort of the key point here. A second point I'd like to make is that the song itself, Both Sides Now, it cuts across all genres. It's been covered by so many different vocalists, including, of course, Luke Combs, who brought it to number one most recently. But it's also been covered by, believe it or not, Justin Bieber, and I dare say there's many others who've covered it live but not recorded it for whatever royalty reasons or copyright reasons. But Both Sides Now is just such an iconic song that I think it touches a lot of vocalists, and they choose to perform it regardless of what genre they sing in. So as a side note, I did hear an interview with Joni Mitchell in which somebody asked her, of all the versions you've heard of other people singing Both Sides Now, which do you like the most? And she referred to an older British woman who almost delivered the song in kind of a spoken word way. She almost wasn't even singing the song, but she was just almost theatrically, almost sort of Shakespearean. She delivered the song with, I think, such deep meaning that Joni really appreciated that performance. So, Both Sides Now, we're looking at something that has both longevity and is able to transcend genre, so it has breadth as well. Okay, so now let's look at Tracy Chapman's Fast Car. That song originally came out in the late 80s, and it was released on Tracy Chapman's debut album. Now, if you remember back in that era, this was sort of a little bit post-vinyl. People were still buying LPs and singles, but most folks had switched over to listening to their music on CD. So the notion of covering or bootlegging somebody else's song was pretty common. And in fact, probably the first cover version I remember of Tracy Chapman's self-titled debut album was a dancehall reggae version of Sorry, or Fast Car. I can't remember exactly all the tracks, but it was pretty catchy, and it may seem like a bit of a leap from sort of this soulful folk music to dance music, but somehow whoever this DJ was, they figured it out. They kind of just put a bouncy beat behind it. Had the drum machine tracks, I'm sure, on their keyboard, and then figured out the chord structure, and then they put out a pretty popular dancehall reggae version of Tracy Chapman's songs. And this is when I was in New York. I don't know if it hit the West Coast at all, but it was pretty ubiquitous in New York. Wherever you were during the summer, you were gonna hear that dancehall reggae version of Tracy Chapman. Because people in New York, like to blast their music, especially in the summer. People customize their cars, so they got those big. They used to, anyways, have those big speakers, and there's so much pedestrian traffic in New York that it's a thing to blast your music while people are also walking down the street. Maybe less so in LA. I'm not really sure, but in any case, that song just got imprinted, I think, on everybody when it came out in the late 80s. So again, I don't think, Tracy Chapman performing at the Grammys, I don't think like, oh wow, that's a big accomplishment for her. Only because she won a Grammy for that album back in 88, 89. So she's got, I think, at least 4 Grammys already. So for her to step on stage again is not something shiny and new for her. She's kind of been there, done that. I think that it serves as better to look at, again, the longevity of the song Fast Car. So we're going 80s, 90s, noughts, 10s, 20s. I mean, it's had a long life, right, up to this point. And it's the fact that somebody like Justin Bieber and that Luke Combs can record Fast Car, that's pretty wide reaching. So again, it shows breadth. So what is it that has both Sides Now and Fast Car? What do they have in common that help them reach this longevity and this breadth? Well, I mean, without doing this like sort of musical breakdown, because that's not my thing, I think we can say that they're both fundamentally super sound as written compositions. The lyrics touch us. The strong song structure is straightforward. We can follow the courses. We can follow the narrative as it's told through the chorus and each verse. And the melodies themselves are I don't like the word catchy, but the melodies themselves are catchy enough that we can remember them and we want to sing along. All right, so to kind of flip this a little bit, I'm gonna guess there are probably some folks who saw these performances, perhaps younger folks, or just folks who were never familiar with Tracy Chapman or Joni Mitchell, and they're like, what the heck is that gray-haired lady doing on stage with Luke Combs? And who is that older woman? Why she's like sitting down? Why are they putting these women on the Grammy Awards when we're used to seeing, pretty young things dropping from the ceiling on a cable and twerking in our face and doing all this kind of stuff? Well, to those folks I say, stop looking at the world through a straw. To borrow a saying from the late great strength coach Charles Poliquin, don't look at the world through a straw. So, in other words, expand your horizons a bit. I shared a brief, bigger context for both those songs and both of those women, Joni Mitchell and Tracy Chapman. So, please, take a look at some of the links that I put in the description and explore both those performers for yourself. I think you'll enjoy their music. But to tie this into boxing, the reason this struck me is I just realized probably a lot of people won't appreciate either Joni Mitchell or Tracy Chapman, or kind of interpret why they're there from their looking through a straw perspective. And unfortunately, I think there's plenty of boxing folks who do exactly this. They only look at exactly what's in front of them. And right now, so that means they're looking at Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, Tank Davis, Teofimo Lopez, etc. A lot of boxing fans right now, and even fighters themselves, they do not look past. They do not look into the past. And unfortunately, the examples they're looking at, in my opinion, are not fundamentally sound. So all these young fighters just kind of reference each other, and they say, oh, we're part of the new generation, the new era, and they just sort of shove all the boxing, the art of boxing, they just shove that in the corner and say, that's just old stuff, it's not relevant, we're the new generation, we're what's relevant. And they keep pumping out that narrative via social media because they all have big social media platforms, whereas Joe Louis has no social media platform. The only social media that exists for fighters of days gone by are what some of true boxing fans will put out there on a sort of archive fashion. But it's a bit of a fallacy to think that that's all that exists. I think we need to look at what is fundamentally sound in boxing, and understand that that's what provides longevity to the sport. We hear Ryan Garcia saying, oh, I took the loss against Tank Davis to save boxing. We're hearing Teofimo Lopez saying, oh, I'm going to save boxing. I came out of retirement to save boxing. And it's like, okay, boxing has been around since time immemorial. It's not been documented until someone invented film, right? And movie cameras. And then so our earliest footage of boxing is probably from around the Jack Johnson era, and then forward. But certainly, just because you have tons of shorts on YouTube and videos of your sparring sessions posted, doesn't mean that everybody else who doesn't have those, who's not making a short, not doing a live, it doesn't mean their boxing is irrelevant. It just means people who only look at YouTube are gonna have to hunt for these real boxing gems that are, in my opinion, all the boxing gems are in black and white. So what gives that type of boxing longevity is the fact that it's fundamentally sound in terms of look at those older look at those fighters, Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson, Archie Moore, Jersey Joe Walcott, Willie Pep. They all have solid footwork. Watch their footwork. It's varied, it's subtle, it's nuanced, right? Those fighters can fight on the outside and keep their opponent at bay. They can fight at mid-range and move in and out and work angles, or they can work, as we say, toe-to-toe, right on the inside. They can work pinning their opponent against the ropes. They can work when they're against the ropes and the opponent has them on the ropes. They can maneuver their way or avoid punches and get off the ropes. They know how to steer somebody around the ring. They know how to just control the pace of the fight, and either eat up time if need be, take a break, or to pour it on. But these are all like boxing fundamentals that every fighter should aspire to. You shouldn't just aspire to becoming a meme, have a memeable moment that's, okay, awesome, 5 seconds short of me dropping somebody. Ryan also said in that podcast with Patrick Bet-David that he felt his left hook was better than Sugar Ray Robinson's. Okay, well, I'll let you guys discuss that one amongst yourselves, as they say, or do your research. But again, that's looking at everything through a straw. We're only looking at this one punch knockout. That's not what it is. That's the one punch knockout. Okay, there's a lot that came before that one punch that knocked the person out. That's what a boxing student and a boxing fan would appreciate, is how somebody breaks someone else down, sets them up, and then nails them with that left hook that puts them out. That's the whole art of boxing. So an art is the whole piece. It's not a meme. So it's almost like I feel like, that's what fighters today are aspiring to, is to become a meme. Like, let's do a funny little Fortnite dance at the end, and that'll go viral maybe. Yay. Like, that's success somehow. Ironically, to put Tracy Chapman's Fast Car in context, one of the other artists that was up for the same Grammy that she won, which is like Best New Artist or something, was, hey, click on that link if you really want to know. No, don't do it, because that link's not there. I'm not going to rickroll you. But that's one of the songs that was out at the same time as Tracy Chapman's Fast Car, was Rick Astley. So I guess that kind of shows you the context of how different Tracy Chapman was from her the music that was out there during the late 80s. So yeah, I feel like these boxers now just they'd be happy if they were like that rickrolled meme, because at least everybody's looking at me, right? And that kind of brings me to another point, which is kind of underneath the longevity and the sort of breadth that true art has, right? That can transcend time, that can transcend a genre or a style. Having good footwork in boxing or in any fight game does not mean you have to be a certain type of fighter. You're not a brawler or a boxer. No matter what, you need good basics. You need good footwork. That's just one example. But I feel like underneath all of that, underneath the art for both Joni Mitchell and Tracy Chapman, there's something called sincerity and honesty. The sincerity and honesty of an artist. I highly doubt either woman wrote those songs thinking, oh, how am I going to get a #1 hit? How am I going to get a Grammy? How am I going to get people to pay attention to me? I really don't think that was any of their motivation. I think that song was in them, or those feelings were like deep inside, and the song had to come out, and they had to write it. It was an inevitable. And that's what true art is. It's something that an artist creates because it's inevitable. You can't help it. It has nothing to do with likes or subscribers even, or, how many eyeballs can I get? That's like external motivation. It's not internal motivation. So, finally, I just wanted to leave you with that, just please don't look at boxing. Please don't look at boxing like this, through a straw. Please kind of explore a little more. Look at boxing in black and white on YouTube as much as you can. Study some of the life stories of fighters who've already passed on. Not just because I think they're interesting, but also because it'll give you a better context for what these athletes endured in their lifetime and what they accomplished, I guess you could say, either because of or in spite of what they were going through in their life. And finally, in general, I would just say, hey, don't do this. Do not look at life through a straw. Get rid of the straw. Try to open up your horizons a little bit. Explore. The one good thing about YouTube is that you can explore for free, and so please do take advantage of that. So let me know, what was your favorite moment at the 2024 Grammys? What kind of music do you like to listen to? I'm very curious. Please share that with me in the comments below. Thank you.